Welcome. My name is Andres from the Baking Steel Test Kitchen. Got Craig over here. And we're hanging out in the test kitchen here. We've got these beautiful monogram ovens. Inside, top, you can't see it here. We'll do a close-up later. Top shelf and bottom shelf, baking steels. Preheating at 450 for the last, like, say, hour and a half. Dough is our 72-hour dough. This is actually not 72 hours anymore. It's older. You can see it's really starting to proof. It's probably 5 or 6 days old, which is going to be really flavorful. And sauce, I'll talk about sauce in a few minutes, I guess. But we're going to just make some pizzas. And you guys ask questions as we're making them. And if you have, we'll just answer anything. And whatever you want to talk about, we'll talk about. This is literally your time to get comfortable. If you're new to us, we're super casual. We just love to make pizza and answer your questions. You guys are all amazing. We're grateful for every one of you. Right? Are you? We both are. Yeah. Let's do this. My pizza is lit. Craig's gonna answer the questions. I can't read. My eyes are so bad. Even with glasses.
You want to start with some questions?
Yeah, let's. Before we even make pizza, that's a great call. Let's get to some questions.
How long will dough keep in the fridge?
Ooh, good question. That's a great question because dough in the fridge. Over the last year or two, I have been storing my dough in the fridge in the bulk, like this, in my containers. I keep it in the fridge in that state, and I pull it out the day I make pizza. And that day I ball it up and put it into these delis. And depending what time of day it is, I'll leave them in the fridge or I'll pull them out and leave them at room temperature. And the idea is I want to really nail that final proof. And the best way to do that is to ball it up and let it proof at room temp for like 3 or 4 hours. So the risk I have if I ball up a day or two early is the dough in the fridge might start to expand and proof in the fridge too fast. And what happens is it just loses that window of vitality. And it makes it, and these are like micro differences, but as we dial it in, if I had a restaurant, I would be bulk fermenting the entire time. The day of pizza making, I would ball them up and put them in my my dough racks. Okay, so I hope that answers that question.
Yes. Let's go with all over the place.
All right. Coffee, anybody?
How many grams of dough per pizza?
Great question. How many grams per dough per pizza? Okay, so typically my strike zone, these delis are 2-cup delis. We find 250 grams is great for these. That stretches out to be between a 10 and 12-inch pizza. And you make it smaller too, depending how you stretch it out. Pizza peels. This is our pizza peel that we offer on our site. It's wood, which we highly recommend. Most peels off the shelf are 14 inches wide. Our baking steel is measured 14 by 16. In other words, I cannot make a bigger than a 14-inch round pizza on my steel, right? And so that's why we have the peel at 14 inches. Most peels are only 14 inches. So that is a really good size pizza dough for that. Now, we do make a 16-inch round that's out of stock right now. We also made a 16-inch peel, so it's bigger. So it's more like commercial in a home environment. Most ovens can handle up to 16 inches round, but in order to accommodate that, you need to have a matching peel. And then we can talk about expanding the dough size. And what we do for that, this is what do they call these? Dough tray? Proofing tray. This fits in my refrigeration out back. It's big for a home oven, a home refrigerator. But what we like about these in restaurants is it's a tray with a lid that's airtight, and I can make big dough balls. So we can make them 300, 400, 500, however big you want. So I guess to answer your question, really depends on what you're trying to make. For example, I'm making a thin crust. I only need 150 grams of dough. I'm using a rolling pin to roll it out really large. And that's plenty of big. But again, my really large is only 14 inches wide. So just be mindful of all these nuances, these little things that we have in your home oven and the home environment. But to answer your question, this is long-winded, 240 to 250 grams.
Can it be frozen, and at what point?
Whew. Can dough be frozen? The quick answer is we don't encourage it. However, if you are going to freeze your dough, and we do this, we have done this, the best time to freeze it is after a 24 or 48 hour bulk fermentation. Make your dough balls, place them in the delis, and then freeze right away. Because you don't want your dough to be proofing like this and then freeze it. Because what we find is it just becomes, because what happens is the yeast and the glutens break down almost too much. And so it's not ideal to freeze dough. Freeze bread, that's a whole different game. You can freeze bread, it freezes great. But dough is a little bit more tricky. So if you are gonna do it, 48-hour maximum fermentation, ball it up, freeze right away. Hope that helps.
There's a 3-part question.
Uh-oh, I need some notes, I need a pen.
1,
first part.
72-hour dough recipe. While we're at it, talk about yeast and the little amount we use, and also why do we use organic flour?
Oh, great questions. Our 72-hour dough, you want the recipe? Is that she's asking? Recipe. So we have that available on our site, right on our homepage at bakingsteel.com. We'll tag it at some point. Follow us on Instagram. It's on there. Direct message us. We'll send it to you. But it's really Google 72-hour dough baking steel. Boom, it pops up. Okay. And we've got a video there too. And we'll do a follow-up with you guys on that. But that's that. Why we use a small amount of yeast?
Yes.
This started from Jim Leahy, amazing baker, wrote this no-knead recipe, which is phenomenal. And then we've kind of followed his method. We just took it another step or two. Because we're fermenting our dough for a longer period of time, we don't need a lot of yeast to activate and get going. If I was going to make dough the same day, I'm going to use, a lot of yeast, probably that whole yeast package. But because we're fermenting over a period of time, we found 1 gram per 5, like 0.03% or 0.02% is plenty enough for a longer fermentation. Experiment. I mean, sometimes I'll double it if I'm making something next day, or I might use 2 grams versus 1 gram. We've even tried less, and that also works for longer fermentation. So really, Alton Brown did a recipe that we did a few years ago, and his was around the same amount of flour, but he literally used 9 grams of yeast. So we did it for fun, and man, this thing expanded like so. Remember how fast it blew the lid off of the dough? It was actually really good. And I think that was still a 24-hour dough, if I remember right. I forget what it was exactly, but it expanded really fast, but we just found it to be unnecessary. We basically use micro amounts, and it does the work.
Why room temp water versus hot water?
Great question. So because we're fermenting at room temperature first, we leave our water at room temperature. And that's a great question, which brings us to today. It's cooling down, right? It's getting colder out, which means your tap water is likely colder than usual. So be mindful when you're, in fact, what I've been doing is I've been pouring my water out into my containers and letting it sit there while I'm in here at room temp for an hour or two first to really get that water to room temperature. So it's not cold, because it is cooling down, especially in New England, where it's, I don't keep my temperature in here too high when I'm not in. So just be mindful again of that water temp. Room temp's fine. You don't need hot. And then the organic part. Why do we use organic flour? Because I'm trying to eliminate like glyphosate and chemicals on my food. And so flour in particular, I just prefer to use organic. I don't want any, I mean, I'm sure it's got something on it still these days, but the farm we buy it from, the mill, or Central Milling mostly is our flour, is awesome. It's great flour. It's organic. I just recommend it. I'm not a big fan of not using organic, and it doesn't cost, you know, it's minuscule, the additional cost it is when you divide the amount of pizzas you get out of a bag. So if you have an opportunity to get organic, just get it. And that's my feeling. It's got to be a little cleaner than the unorganic kind. And don't get me started with this bleached stuff. Literally, there's some flours, they call them bleached flour. Well, guess what? That's bleach. So like bleach as in you don't want to be consuming that. So that's all. And answer that question?
Sweet.
Awesome. Get into it?
Yeah, because I have some throughout the process.
So we had some process shots. I'm going to take you guys now. We're going to make pizzas. Let's see here. I'm going to take you through my steps. So an hour and a half ago, I turned my oven on, 450. This is electric. I got my steels in there. I'm cranking it up at 450 for at least an hour. The dough I removed from the fridge around the same time. This is expanding. It's starting to proof, right? When it goes, and it's almost, the lid's almost flying off. So it's pretty ideal right now. It's almost room temperature. As it gets warmer, it expands. Okay. Pizza peel. My first trick is to flour it up. I use flour and semolina flour, right? Those are my ball bearings. And before someone says I'm using too much, I'm just trying to encourage you to get enough on here so your dough doesn't stick. The better you get at this, the less you're going to use. But for educational purposes, that's why I'm doing this. And I put this aside, okay? And now for my dough, flour up my workstation, right? And this, we got a little bit of olive oil underneath these, and I just turn this upside down and place it right into the flour. All right. Before I do anything else, I'm going to kind of flip this over once, and then again, just so it's coated with flour now, it's not going to stick to the table as I'm pressing down. Look at that mean ass looking bubble right there. Isn't that cool? It's a good one. Do I pop them? I mean, yeah, this one's a little bit obnoxious, so I might want to pop that, or maybe I'll just keep it like that. And all I'm doing is pressing the dough in. I'm not slamming it. I'm gently pressing in. When it gets to be about 6 or 7 inches, I'm going to put it on the back of my knuckles and keeping my hands like a fist, and I'm just kind of working around the perimeter. And because this dough has been, you know, fermenting for days, the glutens are so relaxed. You can see I'm barely doing anything. It's just kind of stretching itself. If I work consistently around the perimeter, I'm going to get a pretty consistent stretch. And again, this can go, you can see how, like, that's pretty good size, right? Probably about 10 or 11 inches now. It looks amazing. I'm going to place this onto that peel. I'll bring that back over here for you guys. Get my workstation clean. I got graded here at school. I put it on my peel, right? And you can see it's probably about 12 inches. I'd say about 12 inches around the perimeter. Still have some nice bubbles on there. If you can see the bubbles. Looks cool. And I might pinch this a little bit. I like to do this because what it does, it gives that crust a little bit of like some texture, right? It expands a little bit. Look at that, looks just amazing. And now before I do anything else, I'm gonna make sure my ball bearings are where I'm gonna give it a little shake, back and forth. It should be loose and slide like a hockey puck. So before I sauce it, and before I cheese it, I wanna make sure this thing slides. All right? And I want to talk about tomatoes a little bit today. With great pleasure, we are using these Bianco di Napoli tomatoes. These are crushed tomatoes, organic, incredible flavor. They are now available at Whole Foods, which huge fan. They're like $3 or $4 a can. Amazing. All I do is add a little bit of sea salt to them, to your taste. For me, it's about 10 or 12 grams of salt, small handful. All I'm doing next is I'm placing it on the center of my dough and then just kind of spoon it around. I want to bring it close to the edge, but not over the edge, just like life. Oh, yeah, let's turn it on, just for a minute. Just kind of keep it going there. Behind me, Fresh Craig, we have this oven preheating at 450 or so. We just switched it to broiler because when I launch this thing in, I want the red, those coils that are turning red to be fired up so I can fire this pizza right in there. We'll explain that more later. Now I'm gonna give this thing a little shake. It's still loose like a hockey puck, still sliding. If it wasn't, I would pick up that corner and just put a little semolina down and stick it in there just to help it slide, okay? That's really critical. Slide, okay? Now I'm gonna do my cheese. This is low moisture, whole milk mozzarella. And I buy it at the deli. I shred it myself. We talked about that again. I'll mention it again. These individual strands, when you buy pre-shredded cheese, are coated with starch that brown too fast on your pizza. So instead, we buy the blocks and we shred it ourselves. Okay? Now, I just place this on the pizza. There's nothing else on here. There's tomatoes, there's salt, there's tomatoes, salt, and now cheese on this dough. I'm actually going a little heavier than I usually do because I feel cheesy today. How's that? Okay. Good line. Is that funny? Anybody? Any laughs? So before I do anything else, I'm going to give this thing a shake again. Boom, right? It's still loose like a hockey puck. And now I'm going to go into the oven. Want to hold this up? We're going to go into the oven. And you can see, I'm going to show you guys how I do this. The broiler is technically on. If you guys can see that red, let's bring it down a little bit. See how that broiler's on? Peeled, back of the peel to the back of the steel, and just kind of shake it off. Just like that. Oh, just made it. Okay, close it up. And because I have the broiler on, I'm going to put my timer on for, what's that beeping? Is that me? Oh, I thought I turned it off already. It's funny. Just like maybe 2 minutes. 2 minutes on the broiler. And what I'm going to do after 2 minutes is I'm going to open the oven up and kind of rotate the pizza a little bit and turn the broiler off and just do a straight bake for the next 2 or 3 minutes. Lately, I've been kind of going a little bit longer for this style pizza because it's more, I'm trying to make it more of a New York. So I don't even need the broiler. I'm just kind of giving it a little head start. I like a little char on top. And the broiler seems to help to do that. But after that, I might just do 2 or 3 minutes without the broiler, and it's going to be awesome. We'll see it when it gets done, right?
Convection oven.
Yes. Boom. Great question. Do I use convection? With conviction, I do.
Why 450, not 500 or 550 like in the past?
Good question. So I've learned with these beautiful ovens, the Monogram electric ovens, that if I preheat it at 450, when I switch to broil, the broiler goes on. I don't know if you guys saw that. That was like a minute. It kicked in. Whereas if I'm preheating it at 500 or 550 and I turn the broiler on, it doesn't kick in until that oven cools down enough, which could be like 10 or 12 minutes. And we did a video one time and we had a whole crew here and we messed up. Remember that day? Anyway, it's a long story. Don't get me started. However, so we've kind of learned how this oven, if we preheat it at a lower heat, it's still going to be adequate for pizza. Broil it, works beautifully.
Why not cornmeal?
Oh, great question. So, in my opinion, cornmeal is ground corn, and I do not want that anywhere near my pizza on the bottom. let's check out the pizza quick. I want to do that again, Chef. I'm going to show you what I do here. After 2 minutes, you can see that bubble didn't pop. I'm going to rotate this a little bit. Looks really cool. I'm going to turn the broiler off. I can put it to 500 now, okay? I just rotated it, and I'm going to put it in and bake this for maybe 2 more minutes. We'll check it out again. Thanks. 2 minutes. We'll check it out. When this thing comes out of the oven, I will add some basil. I'll show you underneath. It's going to be gorgeous, tasty, and good.
Whole foods dough, why is it hard to stretch?
Ooh,
What to do?
great question. So you're buying store-bought dough, in this case, Whole Foods dough, and when you bring it home, it's really hard to stretch. We actually did a blog post on this, and we'll repost it again soon. What they're missing is if I buy store-bought dough, which I do once in a while for our tests, I'll buy it, bring it home, I cut it in half, and then I make dough balls. And what the dough balls do is we're basically making a ball, we're taking some of the gases out, tightening that ball, closing it, and letting it rest at room temperature. But now, as the dough is resting and getting to room temperature, it's starting to expand because we've trapped all those natural gases inside that dough. And as it tries to expand, you're going to start seeing those air bubbles and those air pockets again. And it really becomes super easy to stretch when you make dough balls first. That's why. Hope that helps. And we do have a blog post. You can direct message us or we'll link to it somewhere. But search, again, on our baking steel site. We'll have that for you.
You reverse the process, bake, then broil.
Yes, great question. In fact, we did that in the beginning. I would literally just broil at the end. What we found, though, is when you turn the broiler on and you let it sit on that steel for another, an extra minute, your steel's now getting a little bit hotter than 500 degrees, and a hot steel with a nice dough is going to expand and going to get a little bit more oven spring to get that, those pockets of air inside. Well, the hot steel really helps with that. So let me open this oven up quick. See how we're doing. Oh, it looks amazing. I'm going to let it go for like another 30, 40 seconds. Oh, can you see that? Can you guys see that? Doesn't that look amazing? I'm just going to you wish you had a neat quick. You can see it's almost there anyway. I'm going to give it another 30 seconds. And we're done. That'll be about a 5-minute bake, a little bit longer than I've been doing, but I really want a crispy bottom. And by the way, if I'm going to make a second pizza, if I was going to do that, I don't think we'll do that today, but if I was going to, I would just take that pizza on the top steel and move it to my bottom steel, and then I could launch a new one on top. I just don't want to eat too many pizzas. That's why I'm not doing that. You understand? So I would move that to the bottom steel, keep the broiler on, and then launch a new one. And I could literally do a pizza every 2 minutes with 2 steels. Really fast. I didn't use my timer, so I'm gonna pull that out. Has that been about 30, 40 seconds? Okay, close, all right. Someone remind me.
Parchment paper, yeah, you're good.
Yes, the parchment, it's super efficient, super easy. Just do not use the broiler with parchment paper because it will catch on fire. Someone asked if I can use parchment in my oven with pizza, and I do recommend it, but not with the broiler. But it does make the launch a little bit easier. Cool. All right, let's grab this thing. Careful. Boom. Oh, it looks amazing. If you guys can see this, it's really beautiful. It's incredible, right? The color, and then underneath, you can see, really crispy. For my finish, I would do, I'm not gonna slice it. For your finish, I'm gonna use a little bit of basil. And you could chop this up or break it up, however you want to do it. I'm going to rip it by hand a little bit. I like the shiny side up. Sometimes the shiny side down. But I love biting into fresh basil on a hot tomato sauce pizza like this, right? Don't you, Chef? If you want to add a little bit more cheese, like some finishing cheese, like a Parmesan Reggiano, you know, that's great too. But really, like this pizza, man, it's as good as it gets with that cheese, and you can see the crust right underneath. It just looks incredible, right? See how nice and like how kind of stiff that is. Beautiful. Boom, we're done. And it smells like, right? Oh, I don't know about you guys, but I'm hungry.
Fresh mozzarella question.
Mm-hmm.
Can't find one that doesn't release tons of water when it's baked. What's the best suggestion?
Go to Whole Foods, and I recommend Whole Foods. They have a really great like cheese section, and they really are knowledgeable on their products. That's what I did, and I tried a few. And we found there's a company. I'm in New England, so there's a farm in Vermont called Maplebrook Farms, and they do these incredible like mozzarellas, and they're really beautiful. And I do recommend buying your fresh mozzarella in the plastic wrap versus the brine, which is the liquid, because it's a little bit drier. One thing you can do also, if you're consistently getting a wetter cheese, just kind of take some cheesecloth or a paper towel and just kind of squish it. Try to squish all that moisture out as much as you can before it goes onto the pizza. Because you're right, it does have a lot of water.
Broiler. How can you use a broiler with the oven door closed? I've never been able to do that.
How can I use a broiler? Ooh. How can I use a broiler with the oven door
closed? Is that okay? You know, like our moms used to have the door open.
Oh yeah. You know, that's a really good question. Here's what I would experiment with. How do I get my broiler to work with my oven door closed? Kind of what we did here is because the oven is getting too hot. It doesn't understand that it needs to go on, right? This is why I preheat mine at 450 versus 500, because I've kind of tricked it. I've said, all right, 450 is all I need. Then when I turn my oven on to broil, it'll kick in right away. So my recommendation is to lower that temperature for your preheat time. So when you do go to launch your pizza, it's going to be perfect. And your broiler will kick in faster than not. I hope that helps. What else we got? Anybody else?
Yeah. What happens? Do you use AP flour or bread flour?
Good question. Do I use AP or bread flour? So for this pizza in particular, bread flour. Love bread flour. This is from Central Milling. It's a super high protein, like 13.7, versus a bread flour, all-purpose flour, which is a little bit softer. Also, the glutens aren't as strong, right? Because it's less protein. So those all-purpose flours do not, in my opinion, don't love the longer fermentations. So just keep an eye on that. So if I'm using all-purpose flour, I might just do a 24-hour fermentation. And that's been pretty good, by the way. My kids love it, too. It's a whole different game. So experiment. Use half and half.
When fermenting the dough, do you need the lid sealed on top or let it breathe?
Yes. Seal it tight. It's got some air already in there. Close it. These containers are great because they have lids that go on top, and it's airtight. It literally snaps on. So I definitely, what happens if you get some air in there circulating, it's going to make it crusty on top, which is okay. You can splash some water on it if that happens. But yeah, airtight.
What do you consider room temp?
70 degrees.
King Arthur flour, okay?
Yep, love King Arthur flour. Great product. I like their organic bread flour a lot. And I like their all-purpose flour too. They're really great. In fact, if I travel somewhere and I just go to Whole Foods and I buy King Arthur products, they're great. Love them. Anybody else?
If you preheat at 500, you can turn the broiler on, open the door, and then once the broiler comes on, launch. Is that correct?
Yes. But I mean, I would encourage you not to keep that door open too much because then you're going to lose some heat, obviously. The idea, I mean, with the steel in there, it definitely helps quite a bit. I would try that trick. Try to preheat at 450.
Someone didn't hear. Why semolina?
Oh, why semolina flour versus cornmeal? I actually like semolina. It's got a nice texture to it. I've actually used it in dough sometimes. I like to eat it a little bit. So just a brushing on the bottom. Um, I feel like, and I don't know this, but I feel like it has a higher burning point. If I've used cornmeal in the past, it tends to burn on my steel, where I don't have that same issue with the semolina flour. Anybody else?
Never used double O flour.
Yeah.
Should we or not?
Yeah, 00 flour, again, awesome. I would look for an organic. It's just I think ultimately 00 was made for those wood-fired Italian ovens. It's a high temperature, handles the moisture a little bit differently. But I like it. I mean, I do like it. I just prefer bread flour. Some people will prefer 00 over bread. I mean, it might be, everyone's got a different taste. So really, whatever you like. I would just experiment with all styles.
Can you go over the size of a peel and steel?
Yep. So our baking steel original is 14 by 16. That fits in 99% of home ovens. Our baking steel peel wood, most of these, including this one, is 14 inches wide. So as big as I want to make on here, it's going to fit onto my steel. If I was using a 16-inch peel on a 14-inch steel, well, guess what would happen, right? So just be mindful of that.
Last question. Olive oil, was it in your dough or just in the deli?
The olive oil is in my deli on the bottom. I kind of squirt it around the sides just to help this dough release, come out of the container. It does help with that. Not in the dough at all.
Last bonus question.
Bonus question.
The distance between the broiler and the steel.
The distance. So between the broiler and the steel, like this oven is awesome because as you can kind of see here, these racks slide out. So I'm able to get it a little tighter to my broiler, but my recommendation is about 7 inches. So, about like that, which gives you enough room to launch and remove if your racks don't slide out. Too tight, you really got to bird dog it. We've had that issue before. We tried to really like within an inch with these sliding racks, but we were burning a lot of pizzas because it was just too tight. All right, you guys, you rocked it. That's all of the questions, I guess. Thank you again for being here. We love doing these Zooms. We could not do them without you. Thanks. If you're going to watch this on YouTube later, I hope you subscribe to our channel and give us requests for more. We love doing them. And if you have any other requests, just comment. We're going to put this on Facebook later, on YouTube. And thank you. Happy holidays. We'll be back again next week with something fun. That's it. Boom. Balloon animals. Awesome. Thanks, guys. We'll speak soon. I think I messed something up.